I kept my identity as the young heir of a wealthy family hidden to help my girlfriend's family through a financial crisis. By chance, I found out she had secretly posted a tweet about marrying someone else. From now on, my true love will also be the one lying next to me. The photo attached was of her and another man kissing by the sea. I recognized him at a glance, he was my assistant. Someone commented jokingly below, "What about your so-called pure love war god?" In less than a minute, my girlfriend replied, "Compared to young Master Ku, he's not even qualified to stand in front of me." At that moment, my heart turned to ash. I immediately cancelled all collaborations between the Ku group and her family, and threw away the pigeon egg-sized diamond ring I had prepared for my proposal. Chapter 1. On the very day she learned the deal with the Ku group had fallen through, Emily came straight to find me. She threw the documents in her hand directly at my face. "Oscar, what the hell is in your head? Why did the Ku group cancel the partnership?" Her face was dark, her voice sharp and domineering, a complete contrast to the sweet image of her kissing someone else at sunset. I knew why she was so furious. For a no-name small company to finally establish ties with the Ku group meant endless future wealth. I said nothing. I silently pulled out the screenshot of her tweet. Ironically, I couldn't see her posts as her official boyfriend, it was only through a work phone from Ku group that I stumbled upon it. When Emily saw the screenshot, a flicker of panic crossed her face, but she quickly composed herself. A contemptuous smile curled on her lips, there wasn't even a trace of shame. "So you snoop on my phone? I didn't think you were that kind of person." "Well, since you already know, I'll tell you the truth, my family only got through the financial crisis thanks to young Master Ku's secret support. And you, aside from being somewhat capable at work, you're of no help at all to my family." Everyone at Lin Corporation stopped working and perked up their ears to catch the gossip. Their scornful and disdainful gazes stabbed at me like steel needles, suffocating me. Mr. Lin dispersed the crowd, his shrewd and calculating face full of veiled mockery. "Oscar, thank you for all the work you've done for Lin Corporation. I'm especially pleased you helped us land that tough project in the western suburbs. But marriage should be between equals. I can't marry my daughter off to you just because you're a good employee. You're an adult, stop dreaming about things beyond your reach." I clenched my fists. I had finally witnessed the Lin family's shamelessness. I had a crush on Emily for years, and to get close to her, I hid my identity and worked at Lin Corp cautiously and diligently. When they realized how capable I was, they used the excuse of saving Lin Corp to test my sincerity, practically begging me for help. They certainly didn't have this attitude back then. Once I had cleaned up their mess, Emily even took the initiative to break the ice and agreed to date me. Suddenly, someone shoved me hard, snapping me out of my thoughts. I stumbled and fell to the ground. The ring in my pocket I hadn't yet thrown away tumbled out. Looking at the massive diamond ring, pigeon egg-sized, I only felt a deep sense of irony. I had originally planned to propose to Emily today and reveal my true identity as the wealthy young Master Ku. But instead, I had discovered her public post announcing a relationship with someone else. Well, look at him, trying to act all fancy with a big diamond ring. Bet it's a plastic toy from some website trying to scam our Emily Lin. Mrs. Lin retracted her hand, her gaze fixed on the ring with cold ridicule. The nearby co-workers were stunned, probably thinking an average guy like me could never afford a real diamond ring. They began whispering behind my back. "This guy is such a poser. A pigeon egg-sized diamond? As if he could afford it, it's probably glass. If our President Lin's daughter really marries him, she'll have to wear that glass rock her whole life, huh?" Hearing all these nasty comments, Emily's face, already pale, turned deathly white. She picked up the diamond ring from the ground and hurled it at my face, her gaze sharp like frozen needles. "Get out. Stop embarrassing yourself in front of me. Ugh." Suddenly, her face went ashen. She clutched her mouth and began dry heaving uncontrollably. Chapter 2. Mrs. Lin frowned and immediately started patting Emily's back to help her breathe more easily. In a low voice, she asked, "Hasn't it already been over 3 months? Why are you still reacting so strongly?" Though her voice was soft, I heard every word clearly. I watched as Emily smiled and gently stroked her belly with affection. That's when I realized I'd been thoroughly cheated on. "Is it young Master Ku's?" I asked, my voice trembling, feeling like my heart was bleeding. We had been together for 3 years, and I'd had those kinds of thoughts before. But Emily claimed to be conservative and wouldn't accept anything intimate before marriage. I respected her, understood her, and in return, she planted an entire field of green on my head. Once the wave of nausea passed, Emily straightened up and nodded proudly. Yes, only a man as outstanding as young Master Ku is worth giving my all to. I moved my lips and gave a bitter self-mocking smile. Let's just hope she doesn't regret it once she learns the truth. Just as the atmosphere was growing tense, Lin Corporation's secretary came rushing in from outside. He was shouting breathlessly, "President Lin, I found out the termination of the contract came directly from young Master Ku himself." Emily Lin's face turned pale in an instant, and her expression flickered with intense emotion. Unable to suppress their panic, her entire family rushed to the Ku Group building. I couldn't let it go, so I followed them there. Just as we were about to step into the Ku Group's front entrance, a deep voice rang out behind us. "Emily!" The Lin family froze in their tracks and turned around in unison. It was the new assistant I had never met, Joseph. I had remained at Lin Corporation and specifically asked the Ku Group to assign me a new assistant. He and I had never met in person, only communicated online. "Joseph, did you cancel the contract?" Emily immediately demanded as soon as she saw him. But Joseph walked right past her, his mocking gaze landing coldly on me. "So you're the one who's been pestering her, the Oscar in charge of this deal." I instantly sensed his unprovoked hostility toward me. Just as I was wondering why, that unsettling energy suddenly vanished. "Yes, that's him," Emily replied, caught off guard by his question. Worried he might misunderstand, she quickly explained, "But I've already cut ties with him. He followed us here on his own." "That's right, our Emily is head over heels for young Master Ku. He's just a toad lusting after a swan, shamelessly chasing her around," Mr. and Mrs. Lin added, glaring at me while eagerly backing her up. Joseph narrowed his dark eyes and wrapped his arm around Emily, an amused glint flickering beneath them. "I see. Funny thing is, I found some problems in the contract materials Lin Corp submitted. Maybe someone was sabotaging it from the inside." His comment was clearly aimed at me. Emily's face instantly darkened. Without thinking, she raised her hand and slapped me across the face. "Despicable. You couldn't have me, so now you want to destroy Lin Corporation? If you don't revise the contract today, I'll make sure you're never allowed back at Lin Corp again." Everything happened too fast. I didn't even have time to react. Holding my burning cheek, I stared at Emily in disbelief. That contract had already passed all levels of Ku Group review. Today was supposed to be a mere formality. "Emily, don't you think his words sound suspicious?" Only then did Emily start to realize something. Meeting my pained gaze, she hesitated, pulling her hand back and turning to Joseph with uncertainty. I had no interest in explaining further. Swallowing my bitterness, I turned to Joseph with a meaningful smile. "Imposter. What's stolen will never be yours. Do you dare show her your ID?" Joseph's eyes widened sharply, and for a moment, he was visibly panicked. Emily, thinking he was just angry, shoved me in an attempt to stand up for him. "Oscar, watch your mouth. If Joseph isn't young Master Ku, then what are you? Look at yourself, what right do you have to compare to Joseph? Dad, Mom, come help." Mr. and Mrs. Lin got the message from her expression. Each grabbed one of my arms and started dragging me back to Lin Corporation. Joseph watched me being taken away and raised an eyebrow at me in a mocking challenge behind their backs. A wave of unease rose in me, there was something off about Joseph. Halfway back, I yanked my arms free. "Enough. You don't need to throw me out, I'll leave myself." I was completely disappointed in the Lin family. When they needed my help, they could be so polite. The moment they latched onto someone richer, they dumped me like trash. But Emily blocked my path, grabbing my sleeve, refusing to let me go. "No. The contract with the Ku Group was always handled by you. You have to fix it, don't think you can walk away from this mess." In the middle of the struggle, we ended up in the middle of the road. Cars passed by continuously. Worried she might get hurt, I instinctively let go. "Emily, this is the street. Whatever you have to say, let's move to the sidewalk." The moment I spoke, a speeding car came straight toward her. Terror filled her eyes as she looked at the oncoming vehicle. Without thinking, she spun around and shoved me into its path to use me as a human shield. Scrach, the screech of brakes was so loud it nearly split my eardrums. Luckily, the driver was quick and managed to stop just in time. After cursing at me, he drove off. I lay on the pavement, my heart still pounding, feeling like a dead leaf swept away by the wind, utterly hopeless. At that moment, I knew for sure Emily didn't care about me at all. Just as I was about to get up, I heard her scream in terror. I turned my head abruptly, but it was too late. A Maserati was hurtling toward me at full speed. Chapter 3. I was slammed like a kite with its string cut, thrown violently into the flower bed. My head was bleeding, and it felt like my internal organs had been shattered. Agony spread through every inch of my body. The last thing I saw before blacking out was Joseph behind the wheel. He was staring at me with a crazed, venomous hatred in his eyes. I couldn't understand it. We had never met before. Why did he hate me so much? My consciousness slowly faded, and when I came to, I was already lying in a hospital bed. Oscar, you're awake. Do you want some water? Emily let out a sigh of relief and kindly poured me a cup of warm water. I took a couple of sips from her hand before she hesitated and began to speak. Oscar, there's something I never told you. Joseph was actually my secret crush in college. You look a bit like him, so I started seeing you as a stand-in. When I connected with the Coup group, I realized he was young Master Coup. You know how families like theirs care about marrying someone of equal status. For the sake of what we had, I'm asking you to let go. As for the accident, him hitting you with his car, I hope you'll agree to settle it privately. The Coup family is highly influential in City A, and it's better not to make a scene. Also, our wedding is next month. Please don't cause trouble. At first, seeing her by my bedside had moved me a little. But after hearing those words, I would have preferred she'd left me to die on the street. She anxiously watched my expression. Seeing I didn't respond, she suddenly signaled her parents. Ha, Oscar, Mr. Lin chuckled, we're not unreasonable people. You've done a lot for the Lin family, and we won't treat you unfairly. Here's a card with 200,000 yuan. We hope you'll take the money and cut things off cleanly with Emily. Oh, and before you resign, be sure to properly hand over the Western Suburbs project. It's important to finish what you start. He placed the card on my bedside table and gave me a knowing pat on the shoulder. Of course I understood their message, use me then toss me aside. I let out a bitter smile, looked up at Emily, and quietly asked, Emily, was there even a single moment when you truly loved me? I stared at her, not letting a single flicker of emotion on her face escape me. But after a long silence, she lowered her head and avoided my gaze, unable to answer. All the hope and longing I once had crumbled instantly, leaving behind only a hollow emptiness. I didn't ask again. I respected her wishes, treating it as my final gesture for the relationship we had. But what I didn't expect was they used the Western Suburbs project they took from me to curry favor with Joseph. He barely understood the project, and during execution, major errors occurred. Shoddy work and corner cutting turned the site into a death trap. A worker fell and died. When Emily showed up with the police to arrest me, I finally realized she had pinned all the blame on me to protect Joseph. Emily, do you even have a heart? As the police dragged me away, I turned and roared at her. She knew full well that with young Master Cou's reputation, the worst Joseph would suffer was some bad press. But she still chose to throw me under the bus to protect his public image. I wasn't at the police station for long. My loyal assistant quickly got me released. Young Master Coup, Secretary Lu said, glancing at me before pulling an engagement invitation from his pocket. That woman Emily is hosting an engagement party with the imposter at a hotel right now. My eyes narrowed, and my tone turned cold and bloodthirsty. Let's go. Send them my congratulations in the name of the Coup group. Chapter 4. The Lin family had clung tightly to the Coup group, and even though I had already cancelled the contract, they still spread the news that a partnership with the Coup group was underway. Today's guests were from elite business circles the Lin family had never dared dream of associating with before. The moment my assistant and I stepped into the venue, all eyes turned toward us. Several guests recognized me right away and began approaching with wine glasses in hand, eager to greet me. Suddenly, Mr. Lin rushed out from inside the hall with a group of security guards. Oscar, why are you here? The moment he saw me, it was as if he'd seen a ghost. He froze for several seconds before snapping back to his senses. He stormed up to me, voice low and filled with warning. What are you doing here? Completely oblivious to the strange looks he was drawing from those around us. I gave my assistant a subtle signal. Secretary Lu immediately stepped forward with a prepared gift box and addressed Mr. Lin politely. Mr. Lin, greetings. Our young Master Coup said that no matter what's happened between you, since you've shared an acquaintance, he absolutely must attend Miss Lin's engagement today. This is his engagement gift for Miss Lin. Lu's clear and confident voice silenced the entire venue. Young Master Coup? Another young Master Coup? Because Joseph had felt guilty, the engagement ceremony was kept low profile. So only the Lin Family's relatives and close friends knew that Emily's fiancé was supposedly the renowned young master coup of City A. Now, apart from the guests who already knew me, everyone else was wide-eyed in confusion. Their eyes darted back and forth between Joseph and me, trying to figure out the truth. Wasn't today supposed to be young Master Coup's engagement to Emily? Why is there another one? Who's the real deal? I know Secretary Lou, he's the right-hand man of the real coup heir. That means this guy down here is the actual young Master Coup. I had spent the last few years working undercover at the Lynn Corporation, and Secretary Lou often handled my external affairs. So he was well known in the entire business circle. Joseph's pupils dilated suddenly, and his face turned ghostly pale. Emily was utterly stunned the moment she saw Secretary Lou. Especially after hearing the whispers spreading among her relatives and guests. She stared at me in disbelief, her expression growing dazed. No way. His last name isn't Coup. How could he possibly be from the Coup family? Even with the truth staring her in the face, Emily still refused to accept it. Someone from the crowd couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "Everyone knows the real Coup heir took his mother's surname, Wang. Which fake young Master Coup are you even engaged to, haha?" That triggered an uproar of laughter. Mocking voices flooded Emily's ears. Her voice trembled as she tried to convince herself. I don't believe it. Joseph drives that one-of-a-kind limited edition Maserati that belongs to young Master Coup. I even saw Coup Group security greet him, he is the Coup heir, right? It sounded like she was trying to convince herself more than anyone else. She turned desperately to Joseph, who was already frozen in panic. But he didn't give her the answer she needed, and Emily looked like she was about to break down. Joseph, now struggling to protect himself, wouldn't dare admit anything. I leisurely watched them fall apart, a hint of amusement tugging at the corner of my lips. I offered helpfully, he's a new assistant I hired, assigned to remotely coordinate with your family on the contract. I just didn't expect he'd steal my identity and try to steal my fiancée too. I pulled out my phone and showed our chat logs, displaying the work instructions I had given him one by one for everyone to see. Secretary Lou pushed his gold-rimmed glasses and took out Joseph's onboarding documents and salary records from his briefcase. Miss Lynn, please take a look. Emily's fingers trembled slightly, an involuntary reaction that betrayed her inner panic. The banquet hall was instantly silent. Everyone had the sense to keep quiet and fix their eyes on Emily at center stage. Moments later, a hoarse, broken voice suddenly rang out. Joseph, is what he said true? Emily raised the documents in her hands and screamed like a madwoman. Not even her carefully applied makeup could conceal how pale she had become. Faced with her hysterical questioning, Joseph lowered his head, ashamed and unable to respond. Chapter 5. Seeing my objective achieved, I quietly left the venue with Secretary Lou. The more socially savvy guests quickly caught on. Realizing that staying any longer might offend the Coup group, they followed me out. In an instant, more than half of the grand banquet hall was empty. This engagement banquet had turned into a farce. Once I returned to the Coup group, I officially and completely cut off all collaboration with the Lin family. News of this spread quickly, and many prospective business partners who were still negotiating with the Lins immediately pulled out. With me no longer anchoring the Lin Corporation, Emily and her parents struggled to deal with the sudden wave of fallout. The company once again teetered on the edge of bankruptcy. While I was at a hotel discussing a project, I was lured into a private room by Mr. Lin, who had disguised himself as a waiter. Ha! Oscar, no, young Master Coup. Forgive me for seeing you this way today. I really had no other choice. After all, the Lin Corporation was built up by your hands. You wouldn't want to see it go under again, right? I know Emily hurt your feelings because she couldn't see your worth, but she was deceived by Joseph too. I've brought her here today to sincerely apologize. You can punish her however you like. Mr. Lin groveled before me, full of false humility. Just the sight of him was revolting. I kept my expression cold and was about to leave. But Mr. Lin quickly stepped in front of me and kept giving Emily meaningful glances. Hearing slow, hesitant footsteps behind me, I paused and turned. Oscar. I'm sorry. She clutched the hem of her shirt tightly, face flushed red, stammering awkwardly. I frowned and cut her off at once. No need for apologies. It's all in the past. I wish you and your soulmate a lifetime of happiness. I couldn't help but echo back her own infamous post. Emily froze, her expression shifting between red and pale. She bit her lip hard, tears welling up in her eyes. With one final hateful glare, she turned and ran off, sobbing. Mr. Lin tried to say something else, but one sharp glance from me sent him retreating in silence. In order to save the Lin Corporation, I didn't expect Emily would sneak into an upper-class banquet. Coincidentally, I arrived a few minutes late and caught the perfect scene. To maintain appearances, Emily was working the room in jewelry Joseph had given her, trying to build connections by toasting guests. Whispers spread through the crowd. "Who's that trying to show off in a bunch of fake jewelry? I heard she's the daughter of a small company's CEO," offended young Master Ku, "and now her family's about to go bankrupt. So she's the woman Ku used to like? Not much to look at. That bracelet of hers is so obviously fake, definitely made of glass." Emily trembled violently, her entire body shaking like a leaf. Ashamed, she tore off the bracelet and fled in humiliation. I quietly followed, knowing her, she'd definitely confront Joseph. Sure enough, I found her in a shady bar where Joseph was already drunk and loudly venting to another woman. You have no idea how easy she was to fool. I just gave her a car and she really believed I was the Ku heir. What a vain little thing. All that jewelry I gave her, bought in bulk for 100 yuan. And she treasured it like gold. What a clown. Emily staggered back 2 steps, her body trembling with rage and disbelief. His every word was a knife, slicing into her already battered dignity. Suddenly, her phone rang. Her mother's panicked voice came through. "Emily, come home quick, your father's in trouble." Her face turned deathly white, as terror crashed down on her. She cast one last bitter glare at Joseph, still bragging away, and ran off at full speed. I smiled faintly, pulled a few bills from my wallet, and handed them to the hostess who had been coaxing information out of Joseph. I wasn't in a rush to leave. After all, the Western Suburb project was still unresolved. How could the Lin family escape their downfall? I had to admit, Joseph was cunning. He had used Mr. Lin as a scapegoat. Every aspect of the project had been dictated by Joseph, while Mr. Lin merely executed the orders. A textbook disappearing act, he played it well. An hour later, Joseph had mostly sobered up. Emily returned in a rage, no longer the gentle and demure woman she used to be in front of him. She shook his shoulders, yelling at him. "Joseph, my father's been detained by the police for questioning. He was following your instructions, figure out a way to save him." Joseph, holding his pounding head, shoved her away in annoyance. "Get lost. Every document was signed by him. What's it got to do with me?" Emily fell hard to the ground. She sat in silence for nearly 2 minutes. Her reddened eyes brimmed with tears, falling silently to the floor. Finally, she couldn't hold it in and cried out, voice cracking, "Joseph, I can't believe you're this kind of person. I gave you my whole heart, and you lied and used me. Why?" All she got in response were the murmurs and finger-pointing of onlookers. Joseph was already long gone. Chapter 6. She stumbled home in a daze, only to be slapped to the ground the moment she walked through the door by Mrs. Lin. "You idiot, still running off to find that fake. How did I give birth to such a brainless daughter? Instead of begging young Master Ku, you went crawling to him." Her mother's harsh scolding reignited the tears Emily had only just managed to hold back. She covered her face, letting the tears fall freely. All the feelings she'd been suppressing finally found an outlet. "Mom. I liked him back in college. He was like the moon in the sky, distant, untouchable. But I still found a way to get close. I deliberately tucked a maple leaf bookmark into his book, but before I could confess, he transferred schools. Now we've met again after all these years. Even if he lied to me, it's not so easy to kill off a years-long crush. I don't know what to do anymore. Oscar probably hates me now. Who else can I turn to?" I was standing outside her house. Hearing her anguished cries, my heart surged with waves of turmoil I couldn't suppress. I didn't even know how long I stood there or when the sobbing inside had stopped. Suddenly, I snapped out of it and stepped back, accidentally knocking over the trash can near the door. Its clatter jarring in the still night air. Emily rushed out. When she saw me, there was a flash of embarrassment on her face, but she quickly composed herself and stared at me with mixed emotions. "You here to laugh at me?" I forced a bitter smile, trying to hide my true feelings. "The Western Suburbs project involves a lot of liabilities. You and your mother should find a place to lay low. I may hate you for lying to me, but I don't want to see you dragged down with it." I looked at her with feigned affection, letting my words hang somewhere between truth and falsehood. Emily was caught off guard. She froze, overwhelmed by a flood of conflicting emotions. "Oscar, you're still the only one who cares about Emily. Please, give us a way out. We really have nowhere left to turn. Mrs. Lin had followed her outside. The moment she recognized me, her eyes lit up with calculation and she made as if to kneel. I quickly stopped her, letting out a long sigh. At this point, your only option is for Emily to go to the police and hand over Joseph. When you handed over the Western Suburb project to him, he must have signed the original documents. I stared closely at Emily, watching for any change in her expression. She lowered her head, guilt flashing in her eyes. I'd hit the mark. Mrs. Lin caught the hesitation and in a fury, slapped her across the face again. You brainless idiot, that imposter nearly ruined our family, and you're still hung up on your one-sided crush. How pathetic can you be? Since all this happened, has he ever thought about how you feel? Has he even cared that you're carrying his child? Mrs. Lin's words finally snapped Emily out of it. She placed her hand on her still flat stomach, and a new light, pure hatred, slowly spread in her eyes. With my help, she handed over the original contract to the police. Mr. Lin was released. Joseph was arrested at a bar. Oscar, thank you. I've decided. I'm going to terminate the pregnancy. The day Joseph was taken in, Emily came to see me. She gently stroked her belly, hesitating as she looked at me, clearly about to say something more. But I already knew what she was going to ask and cut her off before she could speak. Emily, don't get the wrong idea. Whether you keep the child or not is entirely your decision. It has nothing to do with me. If that's all, I'll be going now. Ignoring her helpless pleading expression, I walked past her without hesitation. Once my feelings are betrayed, I never settle for second chances. Especially when her sudden change of heart clearly had everything to do with who I was, not who I am. Back at the Coup Group office, Secretary Lu looked at me with a grave expression. Young master, Joseph has been bailed out by the old man. He's the old master's illegitimate son from outside the family. Chapter 7. The news hit me like a thunderclap. I was completely stunned. Before I even had time to process it, I got a call from my father, asking me to return to the old estate for dinner. Young master, about this, Secretary Lu looked at me full of concern. I shook my head. I'll go. Don't worry. My relationship with my father had always been strained. After reaching adulthood, I moved out and never looked back. Lu, being my trusted assistant, knew a fair bit about my past. Not at ease with me going alone, he insisted on accompanying me. We arrived at the Coup estate about an hour later. As soon as we stepped into the living room, we were met with cheerful laughter. Joseph, you've had such a hard life all these years. Now that your father's here, I won't let you suffer anymore. Thank you, Father. Uncle Coup, not only will Joseph be by your side from now on, soon your grandchild will be too. My father beamed with joy at the sound of that. The living room echoed with his hearty laughter. But the moment I stepped in, the laughter stopped cold. I was surprised to see Emily at the table. Just that morning, she'd told me tearfully that she was planning to terminate the pregnancy. Now she was already back with Joseph. I let out a cold chuckle. Women! She caught my mocking gaze and quickly lowered her head, visibly uncomfortable. From the moment I walked in, my father's expression had turned sour. He slammed his hand against the table and barked at me. Do you know how long we've been waiting for you? I've heard about the issue between you and Joseph. No matter what happened in the past, he's your brother now. I've already cleaned up the mess from the western suburbs. You owe him an apology. I want this family to stay united. Joseph has suffered a lot over the years. From now on, be more accommodating. If he likes your car, let him drive it. Emily will soon be your sister-in-law, don't harbor any inappropriate thoughts. His words, full of veiled accusation, chilled me to the bone. To punish me, he needed no proof, just an excuse. I clenched my fists and met his sharp gaze. Why should I apologize to him? Are you going to pretend he didn't hit me with his car? That he didn't impersonate me and try to steal my fiancée? Don't tell me you couldn't find out, more like you chose to turn a blind eye. He's the one who caused the fatal accident in the Western Suburb project and tried to pin it on me. Chairman Coup, do you think I'm as easy to bully as my mother was? My mother's death was the unspoken rift between my father and me. Back then, he had neglected her for the sake of a mistress. He showered the other woman with love while ignoring his own wife, which eventually drove my mother into deep depression, ending in her suicide. Since then, I had never once called him father. That wound was one he didn't like touched. My mother's death reminded him too clearly of what he'd done. Enraged, he jumped to his feet and slapped me hard across the face. "You unfilial son! You really did inherit your mother's petty, narrow-minded nature. Emily's already explained everything to me, it was all your manipulation. Get to the study and kneel." Covering the burning side of my face, I said nothing. I turned a calm gaze toward Emily. I wanted to ask why she lied. But in the end, I held it in. He was the unattainable light of her youth. And me, what was I, if not a cruel contrast? Why humiliate myself further? She couldn't meet my eyes, guilt was written all over her face. Joseph, his arm around her shoulder, raised an eyebrow at me in open provocation. I used every ounce of self-control to resist punching him right then and there. Silently, I turned and walked to the study. But I wasn't stupid enough to kneel. "Secretary Lou," I said calmly, "start digging into Joseph's background. Chapter 8. Secretary Lou nodded and was about to head off when I stopped him. "Wait for me." With that, I stepped out of the study. The living room was already empty. I walked out into the courtyard and saw two people curled up together on a bench. "Joseph, I still can't believe you're actually part of the Koo family, and even more, I didn't expect you to let go of the past and bring me here." "I'll never doubt you again." Emily shyly kissed him on the cheek. Joseph didn't give her a chance to pull away, he drew her into his arms and lowered his head for a deeper kiss. Maybe it was just my imagination, but I was sure I saw him glance in my direction out of the corner of his eye. Let her go. The fury I'd been holding in finally exploded. I charged forward and punched him, locking us in a fight. "Stop it, please." Emily, mindful of her pregnancy, could only stand aside anxiously, unable to intervene. The commotion quickly alarmed my father. He rushed over and had people pull us apart. "What kind of disgraceful behavior is this? Oscar, you've really let me down." My father was livid. But seeing Joseph curled up in pain on the ground, he had no choice but to swallow his anger for now and send Joseph to the hospital first. "Oscar, Emily looked at me with guilt, hesitated, then silently followed after them. I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth, lips curling into a calm smirk. Lifting my hand, a single hair appeared in my palm. "Secretary Lou, take this for a paternity test." That night's events didn't go unnoticed. The media had captured everything and turned it into headline gossip. Illegitimate son returns and snatches Koo heirswoman, shameless. Even took Koo's prized car. Is there no justice? That woman isn't innocent either, jumping between two brothers like a soap opera. Public opinion sided with me. Condemnation of Joseph flooded the internet. When Joseph was discharged from the hospital, he had to sneak back, he didn't even dare take a Koo family car. I lounged in the Koo estate all day, scrolling through the news with immense satisfaction. Until, unexpectedly, I saw a video Emily had posted defending Joseph. Please don't be manipulated by people with bad intentions. The only person I've ever loved is Joseph. Oscar is just bitter because he couldn't have me, so now he's hiring trolls to slander us. Open your eyes, everyone, don't be fooled. Besides, I'm already carrying Joseph's child. I would never betray him like that. The comments below quickly began to turn in her favor. Some even began questioning the moral integrity of the Koo family itself. I hadn't even finished reading the comments when a slap landed on my face again. My father was raging, red in the face as he pointed at me and shouted, "Shameful brat, just like your mother, jealous and petty. Now you've dragged the Koo name through the mud. Fix this mess immediately." He stormed off, summoned by an emergency call from the company. I sat there, holding the now numb side of my face, my expression gradually darkening. She accused me of hiring bots to attack her. If I didn't fight back, I'd be wasting the false accusation she pinned on me. Secretary Lou. Push this story to the top of the trending list. Within a day, the backlash against me reached a fever pitch. The scandal of the Koo brothers fighting over a woman stayed on the front page for 3 straight days. Koo Group stock hit the limit down 3 times in a row. My father was losing his mind, his eyes said he could kill me on the spot. Just as everyone was branding me as manipulative and conniving, a new story broke through the trending ranks, this time questioning Joseph's identity. Comments exploded. "Wait, what? Joseph is actually the housekeeper's son. It's a classic case of the prince and the pauper. The maid swapped her son with the mistress's newborn so he could live a better life. That maid used to live near us. I remember when her own son drowned, she didn't even go back to look, just stayed glued to her employer's kid. Turns out the employer's son was actually hers. Makes sense now. My cousin works at the police station. I heard young Master Ku was detained overnight because Joseph framed him for the western suburb incident. This Joseph guy plays dirty. Hashtag Chapter 9. Netizens didn't just expose Joseph, they also dug up how Emily had used me to help her family through a crisis only to kick me aside afterward. Those clients who had hoped to collaborate with the Ku group through the Lin family began turning against them, demanding explanations and compensation. The Lin family, which had only just begun to stabilize, was swept into chaos overnight. Panicked and disoriented, Emily did everything she could to dodge reporters and quietly snuck over to the Ku estate to look for Joseph for help. She arrived just in time to catch Joseph sneaking out with valuables stolen from our home. "Joseph, how could you lie to me like this? My family's falling apart. You can't just leave us now, please think of something." Faced with Emily's pleading, Joseph's face darkened. He ground his teeth and spat. "Who told you to be so greedy and vain? Besides, I am the Ku family's illegitimate son. This is all Oscar's doing, he's sabotaging me behind the scenes." But his shifting gaze betrayed his lack of confidence, as if he didn't even believe himself anymore. "Young Master Ku, should we stop him?" Secretary Liu and I were standing on the balcony of the Ku estate, watching Joseph try to flee with stolen goods. I chuckled and shook my head. "No need. Apply pressure on the authorities. Now that my father's no longer protecting him, they can finally investigate Joseph for the western suburb incident." Joseph was cunning. In order to dodge blame, he had pinned all responsibility for the faulty construction on the Ku group. Now, as the Ku name was dragged into scandal, Joseph had tried to drag us down with him. My father was so furious, his hair turned white overnight. He camped out at the company for days, fighting off PR crises while completely worn down, only to discover Joseph had been colluding with our competitors and selling off Ku group's internal resources and secrets. The Ku group was now an empty shell, morale at an all-time low. My father, filled with regret, tried asking me to step in and save the company, but I firmly refused. He had no choice but to report Joseph to the police himself. Joseph was hiding in an abandoned high-rise out in the western suburbs. When the police found him, he panicked and ran. The building he'd chosen, ironically, was one of his own shoddy constructions. In a moment of carelessness, the floor beneath him collapsed, and he plummeted from over 20 stories high. I parked the car, got out, and calmly walked over with a DNA test report in hand. I stood over him, watching blood spill from every orifice as he lay dying. A soft chuckle escaped my lips, my eyes cold and amused. "Back then, the maid who worked beside your mother did swap you and her child. But no one knew she secretly swapped you back later, overcome with guilt and longing. You know how much I hated you too. If your mother hadn't meddled in my parents' marriage, hadn't abused my kind soft-hearted mother with the help of my father's favoritism, she wouldn't have died so young from depression. Joseph, you should have known better. What made you think someone with no background, no education, no pedigree could get into the Ku group at all?" I casually tore the DNA test into pieces, letting the strips fall beside him as my cold gaze pierced through him. Blood spilled continuously from his mouth. From the moment I pulled out that report, he had been staring at me wide-eyed, shocked, desperate, and filled with bitter regret. When he heard my final words, his pupils contracted sharply. His twisted expression reflected the overwhelming psychological blow. It was you." Joseph's lips moved weakly, barely forming the words. A rasp slipped from his throat, the sound garbled and fragile. His entire body trembled uncontrollably, the breath of death closing in fast. And just before the police reached him, he stopped breathing. Hashtag Chapter 10. I curled my lips slightly and shook my head with feigned regret. There was one thing I never got the chance to tell him: the real reason he and his mother ended up in exile was all orchestrated by my grandfather. To avenge my late mother, my grandfather had abducted my father's mistress and sent her off to live with a rough brood deep in the mountains. He even arranged for a nanny to secretly monitor her whereabouts. When I grew older, I realized that was too merciful. So behind the scenes, I began funding Joseph under someone else's name, guiding him step by step into the Ku group. If he had stayed in his lane, I wouldn't have gone after him so ruthlessly. But he, like his mother, made the mistake of plotting against me. When I returned to the Ku estate, my father looked like he had aged 10 years overnight. He threw a shareholder acquisition document in my face, his hands trembling with rage. He pointed at me, struggling for a moment before finally blurting out a sentence. "You, ungrateful brat. It was you who secretly bought up Ku group stock." I stared coldly at him, the corners of my mouth curling into a mocking smile. I simply took back what rightfully belonged to my mother. After all these years, do you ever dream of her at night? Do you ever feel guilty? She brought a generous dowry into the Koo family, married you despite my grandfather's opposition, and how did you repay her? My father looked at me, shocked and furious, his jaw clenched so tightly it creaked. But he couldn't say a word in return. The next morning, Secretary Liu hesitated before delivering his report. Young Master Koo. The chairman left the country alone. He's moved abroad. I barely reacted. Day by day, I focused on building my new company. The pain from the past began to slowly fade. At a banquet one evening, I unexpectedly ran into Emily again. Her father had drugged her wine and was about to deliver her to a client. Oscar, please, save me. Help me. I swear I'll stay with you from now on. When she saw me, it was like she'd seen a savior. She clung desperately to the doorframe, screaming for help. I stopped in my tracks, glanced at her once, and walked right past her without saying a word. No matter how much she pleaded behind me, I never turned around. The next day, the news reported that she had jumped naked from a hotel balcony. They said it was a double tragedy, she had been pregnant. When I heard the news, I stood silently in front of my floor-to-ceiling windows the entire night. In my hand was a weathered maple leaf bookmark. When the sun rose, I crushed the leaf into dust and threw it into the trash.